One of our sponsors for today's video is actually going to be the Commander Buddy. So Commander Buddies are a new product that they are unveiling at MagicCon Las Vegas. And the way Commander Buddies works are these are fun and unique ways to track your life total during games of Commander. So this will be our first sale for the Commander Buddy. They are going to be available, as I said, exclusively at MagicCon Las Vegas, and then they'll be hitting shelves later on with more options available. But as I said, the Vegas exclusive option has Fibblethip, and you have the options up here to keep a track of your life total, and it is a very sweet way to be able to keep a track of your life total, commander tax, a bunch of different factors like that. I'll be using mine during MagicCon Las Vegas, and I think they are super sweet and a fun way to bling out your Magic collection with some silly fun ways to keep track of that. As I mentioned, they'll be there at MagicCon Las Vegas, so if you're heading to MagicCon Las Vegas, head over to the Magic booth and see if you can pick up a Commander Buddy of your own. Hello everybody, welcome to Comedian MTG. My name is Ian, and on today's episode we are doing the requested deck tech for Rakdos Lord of Riots with its author, I guess is the way to say it, CJ. CJ, come say hi and let people know where you're at.
Good morning. My name is CJ, and I guess I'm the author of the Rakdos Lord of Riots Commander deck. I'm not the first one, but I like to think I'm the best one.
Yeah, I mean, so you've been pretty consistently like putting up top 16s and top 10s with this deck for quite some time now, right? Like I think you and I met in Massachusetts quite a while ago, and I think you sort of just hit this stride. I think I don't even know how long ago at this point, but like there's now like very few tournaments I see in Massachusetts where you're not at least making the top cut with this deck.
I would like to eventually break out of the New England area and play in more tournaments, but right now King's Court is kind of the one that's close to home. And I think it's been this past month, so October, September, and August. I top 10'd all of them, and I think as well in June.
Yeah, I mean, this deck is pretty sweet, and it's definitely a little bit atypical. So I think we should start off by reading the commanders. Rakdos Lord of Riots is a Rakdos commander for black, red. It is a 6/6 for 4 that says you can't cast it unless an opponent has lost life this turn. It's a flying trampler, and creature spells you cast cost 1 generic less to cast for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. So I mean, I think we can tell from the very beginning, this is I'm going to do a lot of damage and then reduce the cost of my Haymaker permanents. And I think with 41 creatures, it gets pretty indicative of like what's going to happen next, you know?
A bit above average.
Yeah. Just
you'd be amazed how many people forget that it has trample.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. I feel like this card would be considerably worse without trample, to be honest. I gotta ask what the actual CMC of this deck is. Let's go find out.
Man, you don't want to know.
3.24 without lands, 2.32 with them. Yeah, medium mana value of the deck is just a solid 2. That includes a bunch of 0 drops and lands.
I've copied someone's ad nauseum once with a Wandering Archaic, and I lost 28 life off 5 cards. It's like, all right.
Yeah,
That's the reason I don't run this card.
So what brought you to Rakdos in the first place?
In 2013, I was running a Animar, the Soul of Elements, and I was trying to push that as far as I could go, and I had everything built except the Imperial Recruiter because it was before the reprint, so it was $300, and I was broke.
Yeah.
So, but that as a budget list is insane. And then when Return to Ravnica started getting spoiled, those cards came out. I'm like, you know what? I could build Animar with almost all the same win lines, except also have all the black tutors.
Yeah.
And in my head, that just sounded really cool. I want to cast Kozilek for 0 mana.
Hell yeah. Okay, and then I feel like this deck is, obviously super evolved from that point, right?
Yeah.
So
playing this deck longer than a lot of people have been playing Magic.
That's so very true. There's a lot of really cool inclusions in here. So like let's pick out some like highlight cards that you think are definitely worth sort of exploring in the beginning.
Like there's a lot of ways to get excess color pretty quickly. Like we're a Mox Opal deck with 13 artifacts, but it's okay because we have a million ways to make treasures.
Right.
So like we get Cruel Claw, we get Facebreaker, a lot of 1-drops well, not a
Hmm.
lot, but like Prospector and the
Yeah.
Ragavan and the Blood Pet, like people aren't gonna people just don't block in this format, and it's really fun. And that's just like a thing that this deck can kind of take advantage of in a way that I
Right.
don't think many other decks can, because my
Yeah.
entire game plan is just poking you once or twice. That's all I need to do.
Right. And I've
And
noticed that you don't really like go too heavy into like the gimmicky version of this deck, maybe, right? With like unruly catapults and like the goblin spike spewers and stuff like that, right? Like it's very much all your cards do something else, and I think as you mentioned, it feels like the combat aspect of like, oh yeah, like people just don't have enough blockers in the early game because that's not the game plan they're focusing on. It
mhm.
feels like that's sort of where this deck gets get away with like playing better cards, ironically, right?
And the earlier iterations of this list did have a number of those cards,
Hmm.
like Lobber Crew, like
Yep.
the that Midnight Hunt dude that when you on Instant or Sorcery he untaps, Thermo Alchemist, and like
Yep.
a
Thermo
bunch of stuff
Alchemist.
like that.
Yeah.
Had Firebrand Archer for a long time. Like
Hmm.
those kinds of cards are definitely strong,
Yeah.
but the ones that have a tap ability are consistently weaker because you just have to wait a turn. You can't
Right.
do anything until the next turn,
Yeah.
which means your entire game plan kind of becomes telegraphed of, oh, this guy's going to do
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
So
Well,
like
yeah.
if I
Also,
have,
too, if even if it's like one that doesn't trigger off of those things, you still have to like play it and then sort of just like let it exist on the board for a turn in the
mhm,
sense of like, oh hey, guess what I'm doing next turn, right?
yeah, like if I drop a Thornbrand Archer or Firebrand Archer and I
Yeah.
pass turn, they're like, okay,
Yeah.
this guy's probably got like a Lotus Petal in hand,
Right.
and then
Right.
that sets up the following turn. But like
Right.
I took out cards like what is it? What's that? 3 mana comes into play tapped Cryptolith Fragment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what that does?
Yeah. I do. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Unfortunately, because it's a fantastic artifact that sets up playing Rakdos
Yep.
with no trouble at all, but
Mm.
it comes in tapped. And
Right.
the faster the format got in 2019, 2020, 2021,
Yep.
that ad nauseum meta, when the flash meta finally disappeared,
Yeah.
like you could not afford to wait the extra turn for your
Yeah.
permanents to untap.
Yeah.
So
No, that
like
makes a ton of sense.
racing
Um.
those kind of decks was definitely the game plan in a way that was more difficult to interact with.
Hmm. Hmm. So okay, so we have little bodies that come down in the beginning, and then you get some chip damage and all that kind of stuff, right? Then you get down your Rakdos. What do you do from there? Like obviously there's a lot of like big things, big TM, right? But like is there sort of an overarching thing that you're aiming for?
Um, there are 3 different win lines with the deck that are all independent of each other,
Okay,
but
cool.
some of them can synergize depending on board state, blah, blah, blah.
Sure, sure.
So we've got Ancestral Statue plus pick a thing, really. Like Reckless Fireweaver with Ancestral
Yeah.
Statue wins the game, as well as
On Gatekeeper,
where is
right?
he? Molten Gatekeeper, yes.
Yeah,
And Molten
Reckless Fire Weaver.
Gatekeeper is specifically better as well because he's an artifact and you can
Yeah.
get him out with like a Skittering Cicada or a Liberator. You can do it instant
Okay,
speed. Or not
cool.
Cicada, but yes with Liberator because it's an artifact.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. And
Um,
Rakdos does that on other people's turns. Oh no, shit!
I
That's
have
so
done it
cool.
before on other people's turns, yes.
Yeah,
Someone,
that's awesome.
I think in my September King's
Yeah,
Court event, someone played a Deluge for 12 and I won on top of the Deluge because I
that's
had
awesome. Yeah.
Razaketh in play and I got silenced. And I'm like, okay, well, fast turn.
Oh, that's so
um,
sweet. Yeah, so for those who don't know, classic Animar WinCon Ancestral statue here, right? Basically, as soon as you get, 4 Rakdos discount, Ancestral statue is free, and then you can just have it bounce itself over and over again, right? So now we have the Molten Gatekeeper lines, like we just talked about, a Reckless Fireweaver. As it's coming down every time, you're just pinging your opponents, pinging your opponents, pinging your opponents, going for lethal that way.
the second line is with Cloudstone Curio,
Yep.
which you could just pick 2 cards in the deck and they'd probably Cloudstone together.
Yeah, fair, fair.
Um, so you can also play like a big fat Eldrazi like Kozilek
Mm-hmm.
with Ancestral Statue,
Yeah.
which itself is a weird situation because Ancestral Statue does not trigger Cloudstone because it's an artifact, but Ancestral's ability can bounce the creature, and then the creature you're
funny.
replaying
Yeah.
can bounce the ancestral statue.
Right.
Because ancestral statue is a creature, so Cloudstone can bounce it, but it's an artifact. It's
Yep.
ridiculous. So you can draw your deck, or you could play like Priest of Gix with Grey Merchant of Asphodel, which is a fun way to get around the One Ring protection.
Yeah, Priest of Gix being a dark ritual in a body, and then Gary.
You could just loop. You could loop Sticker Goblin with Priest of Gix, and like I don't know, if you have like an Imperial Recruiter, you can just win the game because then you get Orcish Bowmaster and you flicker those.
Yep.
Or you flicker like any tutor demon and just put your deck in your hand, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so there's definitely a decent amount of like layering on top of each other when you get something like Cloudstone out. It seems like Cloudstone is just kind of those cards where it's like you can't let him have it.
Absolutely. The frustrating part is it's the best one to have in play, but it's the hardest to resolve because it's the only line that is not a creature. It's the only thing that I have to say non-creature thing on the stack, and everyone just dog piles on you to get rid of it.
Right. It's like I've been saying this a lot lately, which is like when you're playing a creature deck, there's always that dreaded moment where you start playing the game that everyone else is playing, and it's like the deck feels so much worse in those moments because you're much worse at playing their game.
And they're much worse at playing my game typically.
Yes, absolutely.
And I've had so many games where everyone, the entire table is just like, I can deal with that, but you've got 2 demons in your hand that I can't, I have no way to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank one of our sponsors for the episode, ToaMagic.com. ToaMagic.com is a great place to pick up the magic singles that you need, including a wide selection of singles available at ToaMagic.com. And if you order online, especially if you use code Comedian, where you can get a percentage off your order, you can actually pick them up at location. So, for example, ToaMagic.com will be there at MagicCon Las Vegas. So if you order things on ToaMagic.com using code Comedian, you can pick things up at Vegas as well as other locations throughout time. Pretty sweet stuff here. They have an amazing selection of singles and inventory for you to check out. I see we've got Mike-Trike here, right?
Yes, that is the third line.
Yeah.
And now that I've put it back in the deck, it has become the most consistent.
Really?
Because it doesn't involve casting multiple spells. It also is it's the easiest to get out with Razaketh in play. Because 9 out of 10 times, if I'm tutoring for some shenanigans, it's going to be Razaketh.
Yeah.
So if we want to boil it down, this is a Razaketh list with 40 other creatures thrown in. If I have, what's the math here? If I have 1 black mana, reduction of 4, Razaketh, Rakdos, and 1 creature, I can win the game.
Okay, so 1 black mana, reduction of 4, Rakdos, Raza, 1 mana. Got it.
So you eat the spare creature.
Yep.
Get an Orcish Bowmaster.
Yep.
Eat the token of the Bowmaster. Get a Crick.
Yep.
Eat the Bowmaster. Get a Machias. And then you get Phyrexian Delver. Sorry, you eat Rakdos when Machias is in play. Comes back, you get Phyrexian Delver. Phyrexian Delver brings back the Bowmaster. Token gets sacrificed for a Wandering Archaic. The Bowmaster gets sacrificed for a... Doesn't really matter, maybe a protection piece, because then the Bowmaster comes back with Undying, and you can... It layers pretty aggressively because
you vomit like 20-something life, but at the end of the day, it's a protected ass combo.
Yes, and every iteration is more protected than the previous one. So if they have something when Razaketh hits the stack, then they need to use it right then and there, because every single sack at some point, it's just like, it kind of feels like you're playing Legacy, where like, do you concede yet? Do you concede yet? Like, I'm not gonna stop. Grey Merchant's coming out real quick. Gain all this life back.
That's awesome. I think like that is definitely a very specific type of game plan that I think appeals to a lot of people, and you don't really see a lot in cEDH, right? It's definitely got that big stompy mentality, but also like you're clearly describing lines that when you get your plan online, this is like pretty efficient, right? Like it's not just stompy for the sake of being stompy. You're not just resolving a Kozilek and being like, yeah, things are probably fine, right? Like it's much more so you also have a game plan for turning the corner at the right times as well.
And
too, which is nice.
I had to put up with like years of people telling me, oh, this deck can't actually be viable. All you do is play like an Ulamog. Like what else are you gonna do?
You're right.
Like
right.
psh. yeah, okay, watch me resolve this Ulamog 8 times.
Yeah.
And like casting Kozilek for 0 mana, it's just so much fun. I've played my share of cEDH decks throughout the years,
Yeah.
like Sisei Combo and Damio Reanimator and Partners and Rogthras Polymorph, which is also really fun. But like, I just want to play big, goofy, giant creatures and win while doing it, and this deck can allow that.
Absolutely. What would you say your like average win turn is with this deck?
Pre-Dockside ban, turn 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Post-Dockside ban, probably turn 4-ish, turn 5.
Yeah.
I've had turn 3s, I've had turn 4s. Everybody can brag about that, but like most games are between turn 4 and turn 5 in the
Okay.
middle.
Gotcha. So despite it being Rakdos, it's more of like a, it's got that Animar vibe where it's like it's definitely more centered at the point where it's like, yeah, but when I do go for the win, it's going to be really annoying to get like to finish, right? It's more relying on that than the necessarily just turbo aspect of it, right?
Yes. Like definitely there's going to be some games where I just vomit onto the table. There's going to be some games where I'm just like holding a Pyroblast or a Reb and be like,
Right.
if I just need to untap, and they're all going to feel my wrath.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've definitely noticed that, like, obviously the deck was really good at using Dockside and Jewel Lotus previously, right? So definitely was a bit of an adjustment. So can you talk about like maybe some changes that happened to the deck from that point, or was it actually not that big of a shift for you?
Um, it was and it wasn't. It was because obviously Dockside hurt everybody, and I think I
Yeah.
missed Jeweled Lotus more than I missed Dockside at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Because since it came out, I think everybody kind of looked at Dockside being like, okay, this card is absolutely knucking futz.
Yeah.
This should not last forever. And unfortunately, it didn't. I was expecting it to get banned at some point.
Yeah.
So I also had Mike-Trike, which I was trying to shove back into the deck. So
Right.
losing 3 cards just gave me a couple extra swaps. I also took out the Goblin Matron and Mayhem Devil because
Yeah.
Matron doesn't fetch anything relevant anymore. Sorry,
Yeah.
Sticker Goblin. And Mayhem Devil, when there's 75% less treasures in play, Mayhem Devil's nowhere near as good.
Right.
But I swapped those back out for Mike-Trike. I don't think I lost any steam there aside from gaining extra layers to combo with.
Okay.
It was right after Duskborn released or right before it is released, so I got Demonic Council, which is just another demonic tutor.
Yeah, and especially in a deck that like main wins with Razaketh, and
Yeah.
not only main wins with Razaketh, doesn't entomb Razaketh, but straight up goes, no, I'm gonna cast this motherfucker.
Yeah. Like I'll cast it without even paying mana. I'll cast
Yeah,
Crick on turn 3 naked and just be like, all right, what are you gonna do about it?
yeah.
Next
Crick
turn.
seems very good here too, right? Because you're inherently dealing with the thing that Crick needs to deal with, which is like, I just need the generic mana, and that's like, well, that's what my deck does.
They work pretty well with each other.
Yeah. It's like it feels like a secret Crick deck for a lot of the times when I watch you really pop off with it.
I've Kill Crick has been definitely a game plan. Many people have tried to dogpile on because Rakdos will come back. Crick, it's a little harder to bring him back.
Right. And speaking of that, there's not like a ton of reanimation stuff in here, right? Like this is very much just cast
There's
from
like
hand
none.
dot deck.
There is Delver. There is Phyrexian Delver. That's it.
That's it. Okay.
And like
Which I think
I
a lot of
thought that
people
was a weakness, but
yeah. I was gonna say a lot of people seem to like look at a deck like this and they're like, oh well, yeah, because you have like Razaketh and stuff like that. Like you're probably just binning it and reanimating it. It's like no.
we go the hard way. We do the
Yeah.
fun way. And I won a game like that this most recent month because I tutored for a thing with Razaketh trying to start the line, and someone kills Rakdos in response, and somebody else at the same time tries to kill Crick. This is a problem. So eat Rakdos with Razaketh, let him bin to grave, tutor for a dark ritual, cast the dark ritual to buff Crick to survive the removal spell.
Yeah.
And I had a tutor on the stack already, let the last tutor resolve, and got the Phyrexian Delver to bring Rakdos back to life.
Oh, very nice.
So it's weird.
You know them, you love them. We want to thank one of our sponsors for the episode, Heavy Play. Heavy Play makes an amazing series of deck box, playmats, sleeves, and so much more. Heavy Play has been partnered with us here on the channel, and I've loved showing off their products. They have amazing deck boxes. I've got more for my decks right now. I'm super excited about using them. They have the new art playmats coming down the line as well, and I know that's something they're interested in exploring even more of. But yeah, Heavy Play, their sleeves, their deck boxes, their dice trays, all the stuff is super high quality. It's really awesome to be able to use it, and they have an amazing customer service that also helps people out if there's anything wrong with their orders, which is super sweet. Amazing items, and can't stress enough how cool they are. Magnetic trays, all that kind of stuff. Great for a competitive player, and great for being able to bring these different items to events. And remember, while you're checking out with Heavy Play products, you can use the code Comedian at checkout, which I do have a link down in the description below to go check out, and you get a percentage off of your first order, which ends up taking a good chunk off. Now, I will say this deck does seem pretty susceptible to Dragonshield. What's sort of your game plan when that card comes out?
If Dragonshield comes into play, it's very likely the game is just going to go past turn 5, 6 and just be long. If the longer Dragonshield lasts, the longer the game's going to go, obviously. So as much as it's a bummer, eventually I'm just casting the big fatties for their normal cost, and you still have to deal with them.
Right.
It hurts, and I had a lot of methods over the time to try and deal with it, but the game plan eventually has just kind of boiled down to, like, if they play Dragonshield, it sucks, and I try and push through it. And if that happens, then I don't really game against it. I just kind of accept it. Like, I had Lightning Bolt, I was testing Rending Volley for a long time, and I never wanted it in my hand.
Gotcha.
So it's just a more gas kind of thing. I'd rather just play my 5 mana creature for 5 mana and be on my way. And someone else will deal with the Dragonshield, and then if the game doesn't end, then I pop off.
Gotcha. So it's one of those sort of concessions that you make during the deck building process to say, like, yeah, it's someone else's problem.
a little bit. And I don't like being in that position, but I also, everybody's boiled themselves down to having as minimal resources as they can to try and go, which means that they are also in a position they don't want to deal with it either. Nobody wants to deal with it.
Right. And do you ever find that coming up at tables where, like, you're not as interactive as some of the other decks, and having that be like a downside?
Like, of course it can be problematic. I'm the black-red player at a table that is most likely going to have at least 1 or 2 other blue decks. One of them might be some kind of turbo Grixis pile. One of them might be some other more controlling thing. And there are games where I'm sitting there with a Pyroblast being like, there's no way I'm going to get through with just this.
Yeah.
But because my deck functions 90% with creature combos, if I'm the one who's being proactive, I know they only have like 3 cards that actually are relevant to dealing with me.
Gotcha.
If I'm trying to stop somebody's ad nauseum line, I'm just going to sit there and be like, I can help somebody else, but I can't really do anything.
Yeah.
It kind of really falls into the category of the winner of the game is sometimes the one that goes off second. So I can help stopping the first guy and then try and be sneaky myself, but turn order matters a lot.
Yeah.
Just sometimes the combo deck before you goes off first, and that's what it is.
Yeah, this definitely does seem like a deck that is a little susceptible to that. There are certain decks that are just turn order matters more type decks, right? Like, I think, like, classic example is like Roxai, right? That is a turn order matters deck, right? And I think this deck definitely suffers a little bit of that as well. Yeah, absolutely. All right, sweet. So there's definitely gonna be cards we have questions about. Like, Kellogg is one that I totally super curious about.
Kellogg actually is one of the newer additions to the deck. I think he got thrown in during the Dockside cleanse.
Okay.
Because I needed ways to get treasures.
Yeah.
And I also needed ways to get in for just a little bit of damage.
Yeah.
And the more that I'm playing Kellogg, honestly, the more I like him a little bit. I haven't used his sack 5 treasures ability yet.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's probably fine. But he's a 3 mana first strike haste that makes a treasure, which means he's just as good as Magda in most situations. If
Right.
Magda comes down to 1, so it dies to everything, but nobody really cares because I'm not a Magda deck. All that
Yeah.
matters is that I want to get a treasure, and if
Yeah.
I resolve a Ruthless Technomancer, I'm probably getting a big chunky Hoarding Broodlord.
Hell yeah.
But Kellogg just says, I have first strike, I have haste, I get a treasure even if you block. So like
Yeah.
90% of the time, they're just going to take the 3, and I just bolt them.
Right. Which
And I
is
was like,
obviously
okay,
then fantastic with Rakdos, right?
yeah,
In return. Yeah.
because it's a first strike haste. You can't trade with it.
Yeah.
90% of commanders are like 3
No,
toughness or
people
less.
3 mana first strike or 3 power first strike is like actually a really good starting line in this format. It's like
What are
it's
you
one
gonna
of the
do?
reasons I thought like Florian was always pretty underrated, right? Like it's just one of those cards. It's like no, Florian's gonna connect. Like I don't think unless they're just full chump
There's
blocking.
always someone that will let it hit them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Always. I have had maybe like I could count on one hand the number of games in the last 6 months that I have swung with a Florian and someone, and there's been no one to attack.
Yeah.
There's always someone who's going to be like, well, I really want to keep my Avacyn's Pilgrim alive. And I'm just like, all right, well then Ragavan, take 2. And they're like, yeah, you can hit me. And then I hit nothing off the top, but I'm like, okay, I've got 2 reduction and 1
Yeah.
extra treasure. I can do something.
Right.
And that's one of the design things that I've had to build around a lot, was making sure that almost every creature has a relevant reason to attack. Like I do
Yeah.
not run opposition agent.
Yeah.
Because he can't attack. Because the entire table will throw stuff under the way to block it. They're always going to block it. That one will die.
Yeah.
People will not block Magda half the time. It's
Mm-hmm.
just big enough to kill Timna. It's just big enough to kill something relevant, and it doesn't do anything to my opponents.
Right.
So it's a little more innocuous. They can kind of look at it and be like, it's no big deal.
What's the pithing needle on the stick? I can't remember the name of this card.
Phyrexian Revoker?
Yes, Revoker. Like that's like a technique I noticed a lot of people would use in the past, right? They'd like Revoker something that was like relevant to the other 2, and they'd be like, so this is unblockable against these other 2 players.
And I cannot have creatures that I cannot attack with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. It definitely like makes a lot of sense, and you know, it kind of goes back to like the reason this deck, despite being atypical, succeeds is because it commits to its plan efficiently, right? You know, it's not trying to once again operate on the axes that these other decks do operate on, right? You are sort of taking this independent thought pattern and going like, yeah, we're going to push that to the limit of what we can do, right?
Mm.
What let's talking about some other cards that are highlights that might not stick out potentially.
We think Gray Merchant is a pretty new one.
Yeah.
And
really? I would have thought that's been in there for a while.
I didn't have any way to gain life, which usually is not a problem because the games end quick enough where eating my own life doesn't matter. But it's a newer one with Mikaeus back in the deck and all these other things.
Right.
Just expecting the game to go a little bit longer, there to be more grindy decks at the table.
Yeah.
And it's already won me multiple games.
Nice.
Just gaining 40 life while you're looping with Razaketh is pretty good.
Yeah, it turns out.
Yeah, turns out it's pretty good.
Do you have a sack outlet for your Mikaeus Walking Ballista combo?
There is no Walking Ballista. It's only Triskelion.
Or just the Triskelion, pardon me. Yeah. Because Triskelion you can shoot itself, right? Unlike the other ones, right?
Yes. Triskelion, you have to sequence it correctly because I've seen people do it incorrectly. Where the first 2 shots from Triskelion has to target itself.
Right.
So that way he's a 2/2 with a +1 counter and 2 damage marked on him.
Right.
And then when you remove the 3rd counter, state-based actions is going to kill Triskelion with the damage on the stack, and then he comes back. So if you sequence it right, then you can dodge effectively all removal. Like they can't Beseju it. They can't unless they try to kill Mikaeus with the Undying trigger on the stack. Then you can't really get in the way. And worst case scenario, I could remove all 3 counters and then just eat it with Razaketh, because most likely I'm trying to Razaketh line.
Right, before you're actually playing the Triskelion. No, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, because I'm so used to the Ballista combo, which needs a sack outlet, but I forgot Trike can actually just kill itself too.
Poke.
Yeah.
Self-sufficient.
Yeah. Just pretty nice.
Bergie is, I don't know, awesome. I think I took out Cryptolith Fragment for Bergie the moment Bergie was spoiled, because it's a 3/3, so it also deals 3 damage and it gets you its storms.
Right.
So like
And so you've never looked back, I'm assuming.
Absolutely not. Because if I have a good combat turn, Ancestral Statue can loop itself with Burgi to make infinite red mana.
Yep.
And then you can loop Burgi back to your hand and recast it as the Horn. So if you have like 3 cards in hand and you got nothing else to do, okay, we just pitch and keep digging.
Yeah, worst case scenario, I'll just make infinite mana.
Yeah, why not? You know, what in my hand isn't doing anything, I may as well just... And so, like, that's been a thing I've had to do before. Casting Emrakul is a lot of fun. I know you have experience with that.
Yes, I do. It is truly a treat. I feel like Massachusetts meta people have like fully embraced Emrakul a lot faster than the rest of the
world. Well, that's another card that I ran and then I took out because I didn't like it. And then honestly, I tested it back in the deck after I saw you playing it in Kenrith.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with them. Like, man, he's playing Emrakul for 7 mana. I could play it for 0 mana. Why aren't I doing that?
Yeah, it got a lot harder when Dockside got banned, I'm not gonna
lie. Kenrith, I'm not gonna say rip because nothing is dead apparently, but Kenrith's struggling a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely on the bus for sure.
Casting Emrakul for 0 mana is always a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, I don't want to keep throwing Razaketh out there because 90% of the games I try to win with Razaketh, but there's been times where I'm like, Liberator's in play and I'm like, draw some Necropotence on my end step. Oh, hey, that's an Emrakul. Cool, I guess let's just do that. Like, just it falls into my hand. I'm like, I guess I'm playing it. Like, there's no commitment to it. If I have enough reduction, there's no commitment to playing a lot of these cards. It's just, Void Winnower? Sure.
Yeah, no, some of the larger sort of payoffs are definitely just like, they're more value oriented, right? Like, I mean, Kozilek's just to refill your hand and then turn every card into a counterspell, kind of. I mean, your mana values are so high that I feel like it's occasionally not gonna exactly work out that way.
Yes. Kozilek Great Distortion is the hand refiller that can be my interaction. That's super hard to stop. Kozilek Butcher of Truth is its own win line as well.
Yeah.
If you sack him to Razaketh, the shuffle into your library trigger happens with the search on the stack, so you can sack Kozilek to search for Kozilek.
Okay. Yeah. Just start looping 4 cards at a time.
Yeah. It used to be, if I had nothing else to do, there's always something else to do. But if I really wanted to flex, you could Kozilek for Dockside for Kozilek for Dockside for Kozilek for Dockside. And just you have fun. Like, what else is there to do?
Yeah, that's actually crazy. Obviously, no longer available. But still very, very powerful. Holy.
Kozilek, the Great Distortion itself, took a long time to try to justify, just because of the colorless requirement is not reduced. The reduction of only generic.
Yes.
So if you're checking the land base, there's a lot of lands in here. Pardon me. Just because they also add colorless mana.
Yeah.
So we get Tainted Peak, and Horizon of Progress can add for colorless if you have another colorless land.
Yeah.
Emergence Zone, Gemstone. Gemstone's amazing, but like Cavern of Souls can add colorless. Graven Cairns, Phyrexian Tower, like a lot of lands that just give colorless inherently.
Yeah.
Exclusively for Great Distortion.
That's interesting.
I tested what is that stupid card? The 4 mana Eldrazi dude that clicks a card out of your Thought-Knot Seer.
Yeah.
And I never liked it that much, but also like it's probably worth considering because I have very little ways to interact with a lot of win cons, and if I can just poke someone's Breach out of their hand, like half their game plan falls apart, and it's still a 4/4 for 1 mana.
I love that you do Rakdos math, because when I used to play Grand Arbiter, I used to do the same thing. I'd be like, this 6 mana card is 4 mana, and they'd be like, no, that's not how that works. And I'm like, no, it's always 4 mana.
Didn't you know that Void Winnower is free?
Yeah.
So I knew. Did you know?
Teferi Time Reveler, the classic 2 mana card.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Obnixilis is in the 99.
Yeah. I did see that.
Florian in the 99. Like, these guys dig, and they're good enough to be a commander. Yeah. And if I have a Fireweaver in play or a Bowmaster in play, like Obnixilis can just secretly just become your commander sometimes.
A lot of this deck sometimes feels like, someone was like, oh, Rakdos can't get card advantage, and you're just like, bet.
Yeah, I get to run more tutors than literally any other deck in the
Yeah.
format.
This deck is the Sisay of red black, right? Like it is just full of secret other commander decks, right? Like there's Bergie and Florian and Kellogg and Razaketh and Crick and like it is just
it's like, let's just
legendary. Yeah, Cruel
mash it
Claw,
all
right?
together.
Yeah,
Yeah, Cruel
exactly.
Claw is apparently a deck. Apparently,
Yeah,
Cruel Claw wins deck games.
yeah.
Like they flip into Worldfire, I flip into, I don't know,
Something.
Jeska's Will or Wheel of Fortune. Like
Yeah.
mana value is so high. I've
Yeah,
gotten
I feel
games
like
where I
with
flip
this deck,
into
it's pretty just like free to play it, like at some point, right? Like it's just I play big stuff anyways. Might as well just get some for free, hypothetically.
yeah. The first
Yeah.
game I played Cruel Claw, I flipped into a Lotus Petal, and I'm like, oh man, this card's crap. And then the second attack, I flipped into a Runescar Demon. Oh, this card's awesome. This is awesome. I get to run a
Yeah.
6/6 demonic tutor.
Yeah. This deck gives me a lot of like Kalia vibes, but it feels like maybe it's a little bit more like resilient in a sense, right? Like you can afford to sort of jam multiple things per turn, whereas Kalia is definitely like I have to go to combat, I have to survive to the point where I can do the thing, right? Whereas
Mhm.
Rakdos is a little bit different in that aspect.
I'd say, yeah, probably. Yeah. Like, I don't know too much about the experience of a Kalia line
Mhm.
outside of the Razaketh loops because I know
Yeah.
they also have their own loops. And
Right.
like it's a lot of combat damage matters, and
Hmm.
everybody uses their life as a resource
Hmm.
way
Hmm.
more than they have any right to. And I myself included. Like that is,
Hmm.
I am
Hmm.
completely here. I'll
Yeah.
pitch 26 life in one turn, trying to go for a quick win,
Yeah,
and then someone will
exactly.
silence me with like something on the stack. I'm like, well,
Hmm.
I'm at 6, guys. All right, you got me.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that's where we see like the Cicada and the Liberator and the E Zone and the Mana Base, right? Like a lot of those, like
Mhm.
silence is definitely a pain in the ass for you.
I have no way to stop a silence.
Yeah.
I've debated running defense grid for a long time, like
Yeah.
Final Fortune for a long time, but every
Yeah.
time I slot it in, I'm just like, but if I get silenced, I just lose.
Right. Right.
It can win games to have those cards. I have lost more games to my opponents playing a defense grid and passing the turn after failing to go off.
Right.
And I
Right.
never want to be in that situation.
Yeah, like it couldn't be
So
me.
So, like, as I mentioned before, I played in a game where a guy deluged for 12 because I had a Kaza, like the Distortion and Razaketh in play,
Right.
and I got silenced. And I'm just like, okay, crap. Oh, wait. Uh, Eat a thing, Liberator. All
Yep.
right, go off on your turn. Thanks for the
Hmm.
12 reduction.
And
And,
at that
like, that,
point, right, you go Liberator and then statue looping and some sort of
it
payoff, right?
was, it was Molten Gatekeeper and Statue, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Molten Gatekeeper is an artifact. Even though it's red, it can be played instant speed. And
Hell yeah.
I love that card so much, like right away. Because you
Yeah.
can eat it with Razaketh, then unearth it, or you
Hmm.
can get it with Imperial Recruiter and then play it from there. And it's a 2/3, so it also can attack.
Yeah.
This
Hell
card is perfect.
yeah. So if you're playing this deck, what are the hands that you're kind of like looking to keep when you're playing it?
It's always it's always bit of gas, bit of draw. Like
Hmm.
there are some hands that just look like doo doo,
Yeah.
and it's hard to like. I guess let's see. You've got a sample hand right there.
Yeah.
I would probably regret it, but I'd probably keep that just for the turn 2 Cruel Claw, because sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah.
And like, there's gonna be games where I'm just playing a Cruel Claw turn 2 and being like, all right, what do I
Yeah.
get from it? Maybe this will be amazing, and maybe I'll just be doing literally nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump into the playtester and then I gotta.
Mulligans can hurt.
Yeah.
I will not lie. There are some mulligans where I mulligan to 5 and I'm just mad about it. Like
Yeah.
I will not pretend that drawing cause in your opening hand is good. That that's a bummer.
Yeah.
But like any 2, 3, 4 drop creature that you can get a turn early. Like if I drop a 2 mana dork on turn 2 and then an Obnixilis on turn 3,
Yeah.
I'm still going places.
Gotcha. So you can afford to be what traditional decks would assume to be a little bit slower, so that you're setting up your main game plan pretty
The
aggressively, right?
It explodes so fast that if
Yeah.
I'll take the first 3 turns and just set up, and then on turn 4 it might look
Yeah.
like I have nothing until I have everything.
Boom. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So
So
definitely the win second mentality is like pretty baked into the core of this deck, right?
yeah, Definitely.
I feel like you have to sort of get used to the idea that like you're sort of falling without a parachute with this deck, and then it's like, and we've landed, and I landed into a tank. Like we're ready to go.
Like, all right. But there are also some games where even if I try and go off first,
Yeah.
they might not have interaction for it. Because
Yeah.
if we break it down, what are the counter spells that I have to worry about, that me and my creature
Yeah.
combos have to worry
Yeah.
about? It's literally Force of Will, Mind Break Trap, and Pact of
Like,
Negation.
yeah,
Those are
exactly.
that's it. And Silence, and maybe Swords to Plowshare. So 5 cards.
Yeah.
5 cards that I need to be scared of.
Yeah.
Flush the Storm is nothing.
Yep.
Dovin's Veto, who plays that anyway, Force Negation, Fierce
Yeah.
Guardianship.
Swan Song,
I
like,
can
yeah.
ignore almost all of them. And Swan
Yeah.
Song's a good one as well. I took out Perforos and Impact Tremors.
Yeah.
Specifically because Swan Song hits them. It's like,
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense, right?
not
Like,
doing
and
it.
especially now that you have things like the Agate Instigator, right? Like, you don't even need to go into enchantments to get effects like that, right?
Yeah, like I have the Fireweaver, I have the Molten Gatekeeper, and
right.
the Gatekeeper can protect itself.
Yeah,
because it comes back. So like, I
with
don't
Earth, yeah.
need that redundancy if it also creates a weakness for me.
Yeah. And it's nice that you can also afford to play cards like Gatekeeper, which on paper are like a little bit less card quality, but like it doesn't matter that they're a little more expensive because they do more stuff, right?
I don't like this hand either.
Yeah. Turn 2 OBM's not really enough.
If I'm against like a Magda player, I might keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Because then we also get, if we draw 1 land, then we can turn 3 wheel.
Yeah, yeah.
With
Or even
a
sacrifice
Bowmaster.
your army too, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. So like this, okay. It's playable. It's not great.
Yeah.
It's meta dependent. If I'm against the deck with
Right.
an X1 commander, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I do think it's kind of interesting too, right? This is exactly what we talked about. Like, it's also like playing the wheel is playing the game plan that we said we're not good at playing, right? So
Yeah.
like that's a big part of it too, right? So what may seem like kind of an obvious, like, oh yeah, you just slam it, is like not quite so here, right?
Because there's games where Wheel of Fortune is going to resolve very easily.
Yeah.
And there's where everyone will fight over it. Like,
yeah. Exactly. Okay, cool.
Man, these are pretty bad examples. This is also not that great. It's a turn 1 like Bowmaster.
Everyone I've had on Moxfield lately, like with guests, like we've been getting the worst luck. Like it is just, I don't know why.
It's like, yeah, we're going to 6. We're going to 5.
Yeah. All right.
Oh man, please tell me there's a land in that last slot.
It is the land on the left. Yeah.
Like I might run this if if this is playtesting from 7. We're at 5 right now. I'd keep this just for the turn 2 duelist.
Yeah.
Just because the Keen Duelist is secretly insane.
Okay.
Giving one person an extra card to dome them for like 6 mana, 7 mana can be very powerful.
Oh, that's so true.
I've had people volunteer to get hit for it.
Card revealed by the other player. Okay, so yeah, you and the player are drawing cards, but you're also just like full doming people, right? Like,
yeah, if I reveal a Void Winnower and they reveal a I don't know, Polywog Prodigy, like all right, I'm making off the better end of this.
I imagine this is a card you get pretty political with too, right? Like people you want to like help out.
Absolutely. But it's also like you have to look at the person who's kind of in the last position to be like, all right, you're doing the least right now, so I'm going to give you an extra draw.
Right, exactly. So not a card that's going to be the easiest to play, but definitely a card that will make itself clear.
It does need to sit around for a turn, which is kind of not the game plan we want, as we've talked about, but the level of advantage that it can give you is powerful enough where no one's going to counter a Keen Duelist.
Yeah.
That will never happen, literally ever. But if you flip over a Wandering Archaic, then play Rakdos, and then play a Wandering Archaic, it's a pretty fun time.
Pretty good. That's very funny. Like all the colorless cards immediately, if they get flipped off the top, become free as long as you get your commander out. That's great.
Diabolic Intent. Oh my god. Like the Facebreaker is really good. We need to draw a land. I'd probably risk it.
Yeah.
Because it'd be like a gemstone. You probably pitch maybe the Diabolic Intent, probably.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of things to spare running around right now.
Yeah.
So, do that and then hope that you hit the land so you can get that turn 2 Facebreaker.
Oh, there we go.
Out. Yeah, nice. Okay.
So we got the Facebreaker turn 2.
Yeah.
Which ends up being a Crick turn 3 with nothing else going on.
Yeah.
So like turn 4 you have a 2-mana Rakdos because of Crick.
Yeah.
And you'll have Reb to protect yourself, and at least 2 spare mana that you can probably flip for treasures off the top.
Right. And then you can also just jam the Demonic Council, go get Raza too, right?
Nice. If you Crick and Facebreaker, though you have combat, you have enough to make Razaketh cost 1 mana.
It's pretty good.
Because the black mana gets discounted by Crick, and the 4 colorless gets discounted by 2 damage from Facebreaker, 2 damage from Crick. Yeah, that seems pretty good. That seems all right.
Hell yeah. So this is exactly what we're talking about, though, right? Like, it's a little bit of a slow setup, but as soon as you get to that point where you're turning the corner, it's like, okay, and now I'm just going to vomit so much onto the field. Right?
And there's people that you'll play with that'll be like, man, I didn't see that coming. It's like, that's kind of the point. Like, you got... Do you have your Mind Break trap for this right now? No? All right, let's go.
This has been super awesome. Thank you for joining me for this deck tech of what I can only call your deep passion project. This list has been super cool to like see develop too, right? I remember seeing it back at like ELDs when it was still in a more raw form back in the day. But you've been doing pretty consistently well with it, man. It's really cool to see.
It's no matter how many times I'm playing against the same people. Now that I've been to the King's Court event, like since it started opening in March or doing those events, I'm playing against the same people over and over, and they're just like, man, I still don't know what to do here. Because you play against your TNTs and your Thrasios and your Roxas and all that. So it's very clear cut where the fulcrum point is, where to interact.
Exactly.
And when I'm the only one trying to jam this pile, even if someone has lost to it or beaten it, the next time they see it, they're like, all right, I think what's this guy doing? Like table talk time. Like, what's this guy doing? Like, I don't know. I'm just gonna play a Grim Servant with 5 Devotion of Black and just something's gonna happen.
It's really a good deck at being like, when am I the problem?
The correct answer is always, but they can't afford to deal with me when they want to, because they got to save their resources. So I am very happy to be able to sit there, pretend like I'm doing nothing, and then suddenly just try and win.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, this deck is absolutely sweet. And as I said, like when you play against it, you're like, oh wait, now, as you know, especially as we're going into a bit of a grindier meta game, right? We're definitely noticing that a lot of folks are like, oh wait, it's doing the thing now, wait, because everyone's setting up their value engines and they've got their heuristics and their smothering tides and stuff like that. And like at a certain point, it really doesn't matter when you play against a deck like this one.
I'm hoping to bump into the top 4 the next time I actually play an event. I get stopped so frequently by flubbing combat or just getting popped by a Chthonian Nightmare line, which I don't have to worry about much anymore.
Thanks for jumping on. Any final words? Any places to shout out? Stuff like that?
Like the shops that I've been playing with most recently has been definitely the King's Court shop, has been let's see, Merrimack Games and Comics in New Hampshire is a place that I've been going to for a long time. They have a great selection, and there's a bunch of shops like all over New Hampshire that I typically go to because I live in New Hampshire. But like, yeah.
Hell yeah. And you keep this list pretty updated with your actual changes and adaptations, right? So if folks want to follow along, they just follow the list we'll have in the description down below.
I've started making separate lists every time I go to a tournament for what the exact list was for that event.
Yeah.
Because I know there's been a lot of people that are doing updates and be like, oh, this list has changed by 6 cards, and now it's like unviewable. We can't get a good idea of what it was.
Right.
And I can also kind of track it for myself. Like I've gone all the way in the editor tool to be like, okay, what was the deck 4 years ago? Oh wow, look at what's changed.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And like since this card came out 2013, I played it till like 2016, took it apart, put it back together 2018, been playing it since. And it's in my perspective the most fun deck I've ever played.
Hell yeah.
So I'm going to keep playing it. I'm going to keep trying to win with it, and everybody else I'm going to be their problem.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for jumping on, as I said. And thank you all for being out there watching in the audience. If you like videos like this, you like deck techs like this, just make sure to hit that like button, the subscribe button. Yeah, shout out to King's Court Gaming. It's an awesome store, as we mentioned, and a lot of the stores mentioned here today are pretty sweet. I love people shouting out their LGSs. If you're interested in supporting the channel, like button, subscribe button, all that stuff's free. If you're interested in more deck techs, having guests on, all that kind of stuff, patreon.com/comedianmpg goes to making sure we can keep doing this stuff. So thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.